I love people's stories. Stories are what I believe bring the human connection in all of us. I love sitting down and hearing about what makes you tick, discovering what makes you happy, what gets you excited, what is so awesome and special about who you are that makes us different and yet unifies us at the same time. This is my journey, talking to some of my favorite people to find out what makes them excited, what they love, what they do, but more importantly, who they are. I'm always searching for your stories that are so rarely told. So, this is a show about adventure, experiences, growth, and what we can all learn from these stories. I'm Charles McFall, and this is Finding the Stories. Welcome to Finding the Stories, the show where we dig into the real journeys behind the extraordinary people. I'm your host, Charles McFall, and today's episode is one you don't want to miss. My guest, Debra Boblitt, is the author of Bold Mission, Courageously Pursue Your Calling, a book that's all about stepping into your purpose with grit, faith, and a fearless heart. Debra's story isn't just inspiring, it is a roadmap for anyone who feels a calling they can't ignore. In this conversation, we talk about what it really means to live boldly, how to recognize a voice nudging you toward your mission, and the courage it takes to take that first big step. We even dig into the unexpected challenges along the way and how those challenges can shape you for the better. If you've ever felt that pull towards something bigger or wonder if it's too late to start, Debra's wisdom and energy will have you rethinking what's possible. Before we get into it, I really want you to know, man, I got so much out of this conversation. It was fantastic. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Let's get into it. The way the story is told around you and for you on the web with the different interviews and the different articles that I find that you and I have a lot in common. Educator, I was teaching EMS for over 10 years now. I've been trying to educate people in that field. And you were a teacher with multiple degrees. You went to the corporate world, and I did something similar. Then you took a huge leap and jumped out, and that's that's the scariest part. We're probably going to spend some good time talking about overcoming that fear. But when you were a little girl, Debra, where you didn't grow up going, I'm going to start a bold statement and a bold mission and change the world. What did you want to do growing up? Tell me about that.
When I was growing up, I didn't have any specific career in mind. And I think that's true of so many people. And that's the advantage of kind of exploring your gifts and your passion. And it took me a long time to get there, to know what I really love to do, what brought me joy. And so it ends up being, at least in my life and in most people's lives, and that's what the book is all about, is by combining what brings you passion, what you're very good at because other people tell you about it, what experiences you've had, and what expertise that you have developed over the years. If you find that career that puts it all together, it brings you joy. And that's really where I am as well. That's what the book is all about.
So you are living your joy right now.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
So does that mean you're happy all the time?
Well, I mean, there are frustrating days for sure. And I'm, of course, still working with clients. And so, those have their up and downs, those kinds of things. But what I'm doing, it brings me joy and happiness because it's what I love to do. It's what I'm good at, what I have experience at. And so it just flows out of me. So, I make the best of everything, as most of us try to do every day. And that's how I feel right now. I love what I'm doing.
It had to be scary. And I will get to that. And because I speak only for myself, and I've always struggled with hearing stories like yours, where you're at the point where you've had multiple careers, teacher, then corporate, and now motivational speaker and corporate coach and mentor to people, and author. When I'm sitting, not currently, but this is where I was in the past, where I was reading books and trying to figure out the next steps and build my digital media empire, if you will. It was, well, how do I take that step? Because I have to put food on my table. I'm so scared to jump out. And we live in a mentality of it has to be one or the other. So how did you flow? I can't imagine you built your way up through State Farm to then just go one day, all right, we're good. I'm going to jump. I mean, there had to be some kind of process to build there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I would go back to the first decision I had. So when I was teaching, I was unhappy in that career. I knew it was not me. It wasn't the fit for me. When I had an opportunity,
Mm,
take a look at owning my own business, I thought, oh, wow, that's exactly what I would love to have the experience doing. So when I met someone from State Farm and I had kept my resume updated all the years after I graduated from college, I have no idea why I did that, but I'm glad I did. And he went, that's how he used to recruit. So he went through those and called me and he said, would you be interested in talking about an opportunity to own your own business? Now, back to your point originally, I'm a teacher. I have an income. I get paid every 2 weeks. Right? I know what that income is. And I have a teacher
right.
retirement. So I said, well, I would like to talk to you. We did. And so speaking of jumping in, not having a clue what you're going to do. And in my case, I jumped from education to insurance. I didn't even know what liability was at the time that I became an agent and owned my own business. So I had to go through a lot of one-on-one training. But my point is, I left a career that was a sure thing, jumped in with zero income. And in that case, at that time, zero accounts. So I had to build it, including going door to door, literally going door to door. And in those days, using a phone book to try and drum up business. So, and I was having appointments at night in people's homes at 9 o'clock at night, and you name it.
Yeah.
Every,
Yeah.
you make those decisions when you believe. It get back to my book of BOLD. When you believe that this is what you want to do in life, and wow, was I able to prove it over the years. And so all of those experiences brought me to when I decided to then leave the corporate world after 28 years and say, you know what, I'm jumping out and I'm going to take all of these experiences. I know what my passion is and develop my own business. And then ultimately ended up writing.
So you got recruited, it's almost like a football player. You got recruited out of high school.
Yeah,
You got recruited from
yeah.
teaching,
Except there
and
was no pay that went with it.
right. It's like
No.
because yeah, you said okay, here's how you can do insurance is
Yeah.
what the typical setup is, and then you're going okay. Now I've
Yeah.
got to go find the money.
Yeah. And I'll
Hard.
tell you, this was interesting too, because during the time, 1 month prior to my like being on my own, their process at the time was they had someone go with you, right? To show you how to build the business.
Okay,
Well, this
good, good.
particular person was the opposite of me and my style. So
Mm,
I was so frustrated that first month thinking, I'm never going to make this. This is never going to work. If this is how I have to do the business, you might as well forget it. This is not who I am. The second he left me alone, everything was phenomenal. So I didn't start making money immediately or anything. And for first couple of years, really, every single penny went back in the business. I had no
mm.
income to speak of that I was pulling from. I was just dumping everything back into the business. By about the third 3.5 years in is when I started to be able to see a paycheck for myself. And then, of course, it expanded from there. So, it wasn't perfect for sure when I first started, but it really helped me hone my skills so that, and then all those skills transferred to every single layer of my career at State Farm because I was promoted about 10 times and I had to keep moving across the country to take different roles. And, but all of those skill sets came with me and they're with me today.
So you always pay attention. I mean, that's I love when people say, "Well, I got 20 years experience." Like, yeah, but did you learn from that experience? Because the
Oh,
actions
yeah.
I see today, it sounds like you really paid attention and learned as you built your business. Then you became part of the bigger business of State Farm and the corporation there. But
Yes.
anytime I hear somebody say, "Well, I couldn't pay myself," like, "Well, how did you eat?" Well, I know the realities of how you eat is one of two ways. Either you have a support system of people and family and loved ones in place that will help build you up,
Yes.
or you got to go work at the Waffle House at midnight while you build your
Right.
business during the day. So, how did it work for you? How did you eat during those years that you were
Yeah, and
building?
well, thankfully, I was able to build a business very quickly. And that's probably because I'm extremely focused. I'm kind of anal about those things. And so I literally was able to build it quickly. Plus, I had a husband who was still earning a salary at the time. And he ended up retiring very quickly right after I opened the business. So we really had to think about that decision as well.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
would say that, starting that business and being excited about it like every dollar it would bring in the door was very exciting, then I knew what that meant. And so I just learned a process myself. I built all my systems myself and realized I need X number of people to see every day, but I need
Yeah.
X number of appointments on the book so that I can average one per each appointment, which added up to 100 a month. And that was my goal at all times. And then to make the top level. And I ended up being in the top 100 across the country in that first
Nice.
out of 18,000. So
Wow.
it
Okay.
was, but it matched my personality. And so that's why it worked. I loved what I was doing, even though there was no money coming in initially.
And
Really.
that sounds like the key. You talked about teaching, and it seems like your path has been you want to do something to help people. You want to
Yes.
connect with people because that's what most teachers get into that field for is they really want to shape minds and help minds, and then they get disheartened by the system
Yes.
and
True.
get chewed up,
Yeah.
but it's very similar to EMS and what I did. It's all same paths. We want to help people, but the systems are brutal sometimes. So how did because me, I'm that type of person that okay, you're training me and you're the opposite. I just want to strangle you, right? I just
Yeah.
okay, I'm done. I'm walking away. I
Yes, I
can't
was
figure
there.
this out.
Uh-huh.
So how did you not walk away with the trainer that was the opposite? Because obviously, once you got away from him, that's when like, oh, I could hear it in the way you said it. You took a breath, like, oh
Yes.
wait, no, this is not what I thought it was. It's better. How'd you
Yes.
survive that?
Well, I just kept telling myself it was a proven system. And I knew that because I had seen the data, and data is very important to me. You have to prove it to me first before I'm going to jump in. And when I had first met him and looked at all the statistics of all the people who'd started their businesses, what their incomes look like, and it is actually one career, which is very rare, that there is a connection, direct connection between how hard you work and what you earn. So I was willing to put in the hours to get there. And I knew that after this person left, I would have an opportunity to create my own systems. And
Mm,
I kept that in my head over and over again, because frankly, I was learning from him in two ways. One is he had some excellent knowledge, of course, of the business. So I learned the knowledge from him. And then I learned what I wasn't going to do. I knew,
yes,
right? And so I said,
yes.
I'm not going to do it that way because that's inefficient in my opinion. And I have a better way of doing it. So I just instituted then all my own systems that were very innate to me because I'm a very organized person. And so those systems work. And I kind of knew they would. And through the years, I tested different ones and threw them out and said, this isn't right. But
Sure,
overall,
yeah.
I just kept my head in the game while I was watching him do things I was learning from, both good and bad.
That is, man, that is key. But what I heard in all that was you found what worked for you.
And
And I know a lot of times we struggle in business and in creativity and everything else we try to do in our relationships. So we're like, oh, well, that it's so hard for me to do it that way. And we think we have to do it the way we're being shown or the way that person's doing it. And it really does take a next level mind to go, wait a
it's
minute, let me pick out the pieces and then see what I can do and rearrange the pieces and turn this Lego house into a Lego car, right? Just switch it up. It still works. That's amazing. And honestly, that seems to be what's driven you throughout your entire career. Then did it change? So, I know you made your way up through State Farm and did a lot of amazing things there. At what point did it go, or did it go away from I own my own business to working inside the corporate office, or was there always a mix of both?
No. So 4 years, I would say this, like 2.5 years in, the company started coming to me already because I was being asked to speak all over the country to talk about how have you built your
Nice.
business. So,
Wow.
right. So I was speaking all over and I loved it because I was helping others grow their business. And again, that's a passion of mine, like you said about yourself, right? It's
Yeah.
helping see others shine and be a success. So that was innate to me and I loved it. And then they came back and said, then we would like you to move into management, which meant just what you said. Now you're an employee. And of course, the first time they asked
Yeah.
me, are you kidding me? I like gave birth to this thing. I
Yeah.
had to get every single customer myself, blah, 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 the whole bit. And so I said, no, the first time. I don't want that opportunity. I don't want to go back to being an employee. Well, they kept after me. And so by the year 4, they came again and they said, look, we really know that you have the characteristics of a leader, and we'd like to give you this opportunity. And so I really had to sit down and think for a couple of weeks, is this something that I want to do? And I literally did the old fashioned way, pros and cons sheet. So here's
Nice.
the
Yeah.
pros of moving into
Yeah.
that, cons, but it really boiled down to this. The question I had to ask myself is this: what part of the business do you love more? Selling and
Mm,
meeting people and, all that kind of it, or managing it? And in my case, and I had a master's degree in administration and supervision. I had 24 hours short of doctoral degree in that area. So I knew I was inclined that way in terms of the management piece and the leadership role. And so I had to, here we go again. I had to jump in. They were this close. I loved building the business and having my clients and my staff. And by then I had a pretty big business going. But I also loved helping, which was what they were asking me to do across the country, is help
yeah.
people build their business. And so I said, okay, it's like 50 to 51, I'll jump in. And I did. And then every single opportunity that I had was really based on that, which is how will you be able to lead a group of people and basically reach the profit and production numbers that need to be reached in that area of the.
What I think I know the answer, but I'd like to ask anyway. What was the thing that really convinced you to take a look at it? Because obviously the first time or two, you're like, no. And for me, it's controlling my own schedule. It's
Right.
I know how to work my life. No, no,
Yes.
thank you. And I recently made the statement, and you know how it says, as soon as you make a statement, the universe or God laughs at you and like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
we'll see. But I was like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
will never work for somebody else again because I like working for myself.
Right.
But what was it that went, okay, I'm going to give up what personally I see as a little bit of freedom to go work for them? What was that tipping thing? What got you to consider? Obviously, I know you did your pros and cons, but before you said, okay, I'll take it serious, what made
Yeah.
you take it serious?
Well, I was at the point where that was giving me a little bit more satisfaction than the actual sales part of the job, because I had so many staff and they were doing a majority of the sales, the simple sales, and I was doing more of the sophisticated ones. But I realized again, it went back to this question, Deb, to myself, what brings you the most joy of what you're doing? Is it helping others grow? Or is it, building your own business? And I literally came to that decision and that
Mm,
conclusion that was where my joy was. It was in helping others grow. And I had an opportunity then to do that in a much, much more massive way, obviously, because I could be touching
yeah,
the lives of thousands of people. So that's
that's
really what it was.
that's been my goal, and I've always struggled to be consistent in getting my voice out and talking about the things I can talk about. And because I know the way you get invited to come speak is people start going, oh wait, look at what they're doing over here. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a matter of putting out that information. But I recently, in the last 8 years or so, had the same opportunity. I was kind of doing my own thing and had this opportunity to put my leadership ideas to the test. And I'd spent decades in EMS going, I think this would be a better way. And somebody finally said, here's your opportunity. It
Yeah.
was great until I lost myself in it. And then it became, I'm chasing what somebody else wanted. How did you keep that balance of going, I'm mentoring people, I'm leading people, and not get lost into any of the other trappings that that could come at you in that job?
It's a very interesting question. And I've thought about it myself many times. And I think I'm a very independent thinker. Okay. I'm not a group think person. And if you give me a problem, I love figuring out this. That's just who I am. So
Right?
in each of these roles, there was no manual. So when I first got the first leadership role, they go, oh, yeah, you're going to be a X, whatever the title was at the time. And I'm like, okay, what does that look like? Right. Well,
Yeah.
if you give me the end, then I can work my way up to the end. And
Yes.
always with the end in mind. And so even when I ran my own business, right, every year you thought through and said, okay, by year X, whatever it is, I want to reach these goals. Then you back up, go all the way to the beginning and say, okay, to get there, then I'm going to need to do all of these things in the meantime. And then you stick with it. Same thing in leadership roles. I was responsible for X parts of the country with so many percentages of profit and production and all that kind of stuff. And so then I had to work backwards. But the advantage was, to your question, I did it my way.
Mm.
Good thing was I didn't get a manual that said you have to do it exactly like this, other than some particulars. Generally, I could get there using the systems that I developed. And that's how I did it. So
Man, that's good.
there were frustrating times when, the rules were the rules and, all that. We all go through that. But because I loved the people that I was working with and the goals and what they were, and I'm particularly interested in challenges, I get bored very, very easily. And that position whatever it was at the time was always intellectually stimulating. And the business of
Wow,
insurance
yeah,
is
okay.
because it changes constantly. And I kind of like that because then I have to learn something new because I'm already bored doing this over here. So that's kind of how
Yeah.
I viewed it.
Yeah, same. It's I always need some new puzzle, some new thing. And I do I'm an independent thinker, but I'm also a group feeler and I get influenced by other people's emotions and I can be manipulated because I can look back at my past and see some of that of like, oh, they saw that I like to fix puzzles. They made a puzzle for me to fix or solve by really saying because they'd said, hey, I want you to do this. Like, no, it's not for me. Oh, let's hide it in this thing. And then I solved it. What I
Yeah.
lost was my joy in all
Yeah.
of that.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and you in hindsight's 2020. I'm sure you can look back at a million things in your
Definitely.
career and go,
Yep.
oh, that point. So what I'm hearing in your story is as you're going through, you kept focusing on joy. So was there a moment where you had to wake yourself up, or your husband or mentor or somebody came to you and went, hey, you're not following your joy, or was there a moment like, oh, this is not bringing me happiness, I need to let this go?
Oh, yes, definitely. Perfect example, and I have said this and told this story so many times, was when I had California and I had the whole East Bay area. So, down to Carmel was my responsibility up to like, where the not as far as Sacramento, but prior to that. But my point is, while I was there, I was told in advance from the people who are running California, not from our corporate bosses. They sent me out there to fix it.
Right, because it
Knew
wasn't
my
working. Yeah.
personality, right?
Gotcha.
They
Yeah.
send me out there and boy, if you give me that goal, I'm ready. When I got there, the local leader said to me, don't touch. We don't want you change. And particularly two
Yeah.
individuals that are going to be reporting to me. They said, they're not, I don't want you changes. Well, those were the weakest of the leaders that I was, and
Mhm.
so I was still supposed to make the numbers despite these other two people who were not happy and they weren't doing their job and things were a disaster. Long story short, to your point, there were many times in that 5 years that I was in California where I thought, what? I
Yeah.
don't love this anymore. This is torture because I'm ready to jump and run and roll and get to these numbers. And the overall feeling there was, we're content the way we are. Don't bug us. We don't
Mhm.
want to go to the next level, even though you've been told that we, need to go to the next level. So it was a way of working through that. And my biggest leadership lessons were when I was in California. That literally
Mm.
changed my perspective on how I work with people. So yes, there were times when you feel like you just lost your joy and this is not me and what I signed up for.
Man, and I just wasn't that long before I got about February this year is when I jumped out of the corporate world. I'm feeling myself and all that through your story. It's like, man, I should have gone. No, my wife's pointing out I'm not happy. I know I'm not happy. Things,
Yeah.
you know what? And did you ever chase the potential of happy? As in, I'm not happy now, and I don't like doing these steps, but I know if I can get to this point, that I can do what makes me happy again.
Yes,
And did
definitely.
you win or lose? Because I lost in that battle.
I would say this, step by step, I lost and won.
Okay.
Ultimately, I won. And I'll give you an example of what my turning point. There's two of them in California, but one in particular probably. I ended up being the president of the largest corporate women's organization in the country, and it was Professional Business Women of California. Okay, we had 20,000 members, and I ended up being the president while I was out there. And I was in the boardroom in my office, and I was having a board meeting. And I'm talking and I'm, doing what I normally do. And one of the board members was a very good friend of mine who was also a mentor. And she was an incredible, world-renowned coach, leadership coach, and funny. Anyway, we get out of the meeting. We go down to my office, and honestly, her words, I'll have to keep the language cleaner here. She
Okay.
said, who was that in there? What the heck happened to Boblitt? She said to me. And
Okay.
I knew immediately what she meant. She said, you were trying to be somebody you're not.
Oh,
Need to be true to who
oh,
you are. I
yeah.
didn't recognize you in that board.
Wow.
And that turned it all for me. That's one,
Mm,
two things that happened to me that really made me go back to be true to yourself, Deb, and fight the battle the way you know how to fight them. While
mm,
I was there, I even had someone who was assigned to us kind of as business coaches while we were walking through the process. And he actually said to me, he said, you're not being treated well. And if I were you, I'd be looking somewhere else because your potential is not being utilized. So, I mean, it actually came to the fact that someone was advising me and saying, if I were you, I wouldn't hang around. They're not utilizing your potential.
And was that real in the moment?
Oh, that was very real in them.
Okay, so how did it hit you? What did you do?
Well, when he said that to me, I said, whoa, that's huge. And
Yeah.
already at a vice president level. And I thought, you know what? I know what that next step is. And I know I am capable of getting. So do I start looking and thinking, hey, there's something that would actually be better positioned for me and use my skill set, et cetera? Or do I try to find a different way to lead through this process so I have an opportunity over here to go to?
Mm,
That was ultimately the decision I made. And the company really was an incredibly integral company. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to find that anywhere else. My dilemma was, and I agree with what his coaching was to me, I was not utilizing the best of my skills because they were being shut down. Well, once I went to the next level, I was able to utilize those. So
mm.
now I'm very glad that I stayed with it because that led me to the highest position you could be. So,
That's man, we always have choices.
yeah.
We always have choices.
Like,
And what you did in each of these moments is you made a choice instead of letting the choice make you.
yeah.
And you didn't go, well, anything negative you could have said about how they're treating you, or I'm out, I'll find something else. You analyze what you're getting out of it. And that part of the story hit me because throughout my journey, I had multiple people close to me telling me similar things. You're not valued well, you're not getting what you should get out of this. And in the moment, I dismiss them in a negative sense, like, well, you don't understand. But now look back and go, okay, I could tell a story more like you're telling it of, okay, I did get other things. I got connections and the next steps of my life, and other things that went along with the not used potential there. And now I get to go use that on my own. And it's crazy and it's fun.
Yeah. Well, an interesting piece of that, by the way, was years later, I was at the highest level you could be. I ran a sixth of the country. And that same person, my friend, I saw her like 10 years later or whatever. And she actually used me as an example of why to stick with it.
Oh, nice.
She also had said to me at that time, you need to get out of there, Boblitt. You need to leave. They're just not utilizing what your potential is, et cetera. And later she used that as an example of, kind of having the wisdom to stay in the fight is
Because
how she would,
at the end of the day, only you could put out forest fires, right? Only you could see what's in your life from that
right?
perspective. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm pointing right to my eyes in that perspective because I don't know who needed to hear this besides me, but I needed to hear all of this. I'm just breathing as you're talking. And it's amazing because they mean well. Everybody loves you and they are loving on you. And it
Yeah,
is viably good advice at the
it
time,
is
but you
actually.
have to figure out your steps. And if because of how you figure out now, you showed them something they couldn't see. They couldn't see how you could get to that next level. And they
Exactly.
wanted you to be at that. Oh man,
Yeah.
such good stuff. I'm joking here. I'm joking, but Pastor Debra Boblitt is on today, bringing the message. It is
That's
so good.
funny.
All right. So talking about messaging though, did the book come first and then you jumped out into your consulting, or did the consulting jump come first?
No, the consulting came first. But interesting story around that was when I left my position in corporate America. I had so many people saying to me, "You're going to write a book, aren't you? You're going to write a book about all these leadership experiences. You've got to write a book." And I would say to them over and over again, "Are you kidding me? I'm not going to write one more book on leadership. There are thousands of them out there. And
Yeah,
what am I going to say that's any different and significantly different, right?"
sure.
So I leave and I start my own consulting business and I'm enjoying it. And so it was during COVID and they had a podcast going of a publishing company who I really respected highly. And they had seven speakers on there or something. And anyway, number seven comes on and he says, in terms of advice for people who own their own business, consulting businesses was, you have to write a book because it lends credibility to who you
Mm,
are. And secondly, it really tells your clients who you are. So that's really a
mm.
great way for you to continue your business, et cetera. And it was like a light bulb. And I said, yes, that is what I want to do. And that's how it started. So the consulting came
Mhm.
and then the book after.
It's an interesting process. I obviously this is finding the stories, and that's how I love, and I've always coached people on, if you want to sell, if you want to connect with anybody, you got to show who you are. And to a carpenter, you with a hammer, everything's a nail. For a digital media creator like myself, everything's a podcast, a video recording.
Yes.
And I did go to a bunch of motivational speakers, and I've had mentors, and they've all said something similar. And I definitely see the value of a book. I haven't figured out how to get there yet, but yeah, telling your story, you got to show people who you are. That way they connect with you. Um, I gotta imagine, and yeah, I'm sure you have a million stories you'll throw out here or whatever, but that with clients that you pick, and I'm sure you're choosy. You work with the people you resonate with. I'm sure there's been stories of people who just had an idea and wanted to pay you for it, and you're like, no, we're not clicking. You don't know who I am, and
Yeah.
it's important in all these steps. Even teaching, it seemed like you love teaching. And while you said it wasn't a fit for you, I did not hear you say you hated it. It was a bad experience. It was went against who you were. So I'm sure you connected with people there, with students, with faculty. What is your number one principle on connecting with people right now?
Well, I have to feel as if their values match mine. So that's what I would say. If their values are completely opposite from mine, we're not going to effectively work together. So that has to be there. And, I have to believe that they are a person of integrity and that they're interested enough to come to me to follow through on suggestions that I'm going to make. And so those things all combined really dictate clients. And some I will not work with, and others I've actually kind of fired because they weren't able to follow through on anything. They weren't interested enough in changing who they were to be more effective, or adapting or adopting different systems. And if they weren't, then it's not going to be successful. So that's pretty much how I determine if I'm going to work with someone or not.
But Deborah, you could just take their money and work with them. Why wouldn't you just take their money?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, not going to happen.
yeah,
Worth it. It's not worth it if you feel like you don't have an opportunity to see success in the other person. And that's really what we're
yeah.
driving, is to help somebody be more successful.
And you've mentioned integrity a few times. I know it's something that's very important to you. Why is integrity so important, and how do you manifest that in your life?
So I think, frankly, it boils down to decision. I think that's the clearest way to demonstrate integrity. And I certainly had to live it as a senior executive, because by the time those decisions came to me to be made, it was usually a pretty gray area. It wasn't, hey, black or white, here's the answer. So I had to really do my due diligence, do my research, do all my homework before I made a decision. And, I had to rest with that and know when I put my head on the pillow, it's the right thing to do. It may not have been the popular decision to make, but it was the right. And so I think that that is extremely important. And if you asked me what one of the most important things are for leaders today, and that is number one, is, are you an integral person? And are you going to make decisions based on your values and what is right? Or can you easily be swayed by others to change your mind?
I have found that when you stop talking, for me, it's transparency. I definitely over talk, but I found that when people stop talking, it's easier to have your values swayed, because when you're talking, you're processing it out loud with your own different parts of your own brain. The best compliment I think anybody could ever get is, what you see is what you get. Yeah. Oh, you're the same here in the book as
Right.
you are when you were teaching, as you are at home. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it is amazing. And for the longest time, depending on the type of book you're writing, right? But in a leadership style book, or a mentorship book, or a guiding book, everybody's like, come up with a system, come up with a statement. And you came up with bold. How do you get to bold? Besides obviously being you, because it seems like you've been bold all your life.
Well, it was kind of funny too, because when I started thinking about that, I remembered that that when I was in California, I had actually had a slogan for one of our big promotions and campaigns, and it was "Be bold." And I had not actually designed that or came up with that, but the people for whom I was responsible at the time, which were all executives themselves, they're the ones who came up with that, because they felt as if we were at a time, and we were in California in the East Bay, to show boldness around what we were doing and how we were going to make our goals. But when I went to do the book, it happened during COVID. And I had been reading the statistics, particularly of young people, more suicidal, many more going through with that, women in particular, by the restlessness, anxiety driven, and including the word hopeless. And they measured it and it's coming up so high. All I could think about was they need leadership and they need boldly that talks about what it is to do things the right way and to lead others. And so that's how it happened. And then it became an acronym for believe, own, live, and duplicate. But it was really initially about that, is there's a need for bold leadership.
Isn't it the best flow in life when something you're living clicks and you're, oh, I can make it stand for these things that really build up into what I mean here. And
Yeah.
seems like a very natural flow
Mhm.
there. And when was as leaders, as creators, as builders, it's easy to sit on a show like this and for us to talk about the good times and talk about stuff. And you've obviously talked about some other decisions that weren't so great that you've had to go through. But has there been a time that you didn't believe in yourself? Because that's what the be in bold is, right? Believe in yourself.
Oh, yes, definitely. Say in California again. So looking at, our production and the attitude of my executives who were reporting to me, we were not making. Speaking of being bold, I did something that was crazy and bold. And the same business consultant who was working with me, I went to him and I said, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to do a stop, start, continue with this group. I had about 24 of them. And he said, okay. And what it stands for, if you're not familiar with it, is what do we want Deb to stop doing? Because it's just not working. It's not
Okay.
effective. What do we want her to start doing that she hasn't done that's going to be more effective with us? And then last is, we love that she's doing this and we want her to. So he said, sure, no problem. So he sends this out electronically to all my executives and they fill it out and they send it in. So then we have this day where they're going to come in and they're going to discuss it with him and then reveal it to me. So he said, hey, Deb, why don't you just go down to your office? Been an hour, I'll come and get you. 4 hours later, he
Okay.
came and he said, well, we had a very long conversation about a lot of things.
Hmm.
And so they want to discuss with you where they all fell in what categories. And so they did. And it was very, very, very humbling, as you can imagine.
Man, you got to be so strong to do that because it's so easy
It
to be
was
like,
tough.
look here, Bob, I don't spill
Yes.
mustard on my tie like you, yeah, lashing out. And yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was my worst experience ever,
Mm.
ever in any kind of role, any career. However, it was my best learning experience because what they taught me was, Deb, you have to adjust your leadership style based on the needs of your team, period.
Mm.
And because they were much more sensitive, touchy-feely, kind of that needed that consistent, I love you kind of approach, I had to adjust my
Yeah.
kind of strict business approach because I wasn't connecting. And because I wasn't connecting to their hearts, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
We turned the corner. So once I realized what I needed to change, it was really not them at all. It was me who needed to change and understand differently what my team needed. It exploded. And then I ended up getting promoted. So I learned tremendously from that. It was extremely humbling situation to be in, but it was worth it.
I gotta imagine you still did it in Deborah style. Like you adjusted the flow of how you were gonna come at them, but you didn't lose you in that process.
Yeah.
Because there, man, so many you just sparked so many stories. But
Well,
people can be people sometimes, and sometimes you gotta change perspective. But in order to change perspective, you have to meet them where they are.
yes, and it was more about that than, in
Yeah.
other words, I didn't lose my identity, but it was the method by which I was leading that would be more effective if I changed. They needed things differently than what I was giving, right? And what else I did is I made a commitment to them that day
Mhm.
that I wanted them to check up on me in 6 months and we'd have a meeting together to say, how am I doing? So have you felt a difference? Have you seen a difference?
Mhm.
What do you think? Have I tackled these things that you wanted me to stop? And have I tackled these things that you wanted me to start doing that would be more effective?
In
So
other words, you're saying, am I leading in the way that you want to follow?
exactly. That's the best way to phrase it. Yeah.
Because yeah, I wish I'd realized that phrasing a couple years ago. Because
I
there's a
know,
few
but
people is
that's
like,
perfect. That's
I,
perfect. That's exactly what it is. Yes.
I know you're at the table. How do you not see you're at the table? Why is that not? Why do I gotta tell you you're doing a great job? I mean, I love words. I give words to people. But I was
Yeah.
laughing when you said the touchy feely. I had a creative partner at one point. Every show that we did. We recorded a weekly show. Every show, was it good? Was it good? And I finally went, man, if you want a hug, go see your grandma. You're at the
Yeah,
table
right.
with me. I don't know what else you want,
Exactly.
man.
Right. Right.
but but also that he likes words of affirmation. He needs to know until he can see he's doing a good job. He needs somebody. And I wasn't as nice as I could have been. I didn't lead as I could have, and I could have used some consulting from you, Deborah, at the time to make it better.
Well, the one thing too was, the bottom line is, did I want to see results or not as a leader?
Yeah.
And I was not seeing the results in that first year. So it was obvious to me that for me to reach my goal as a senior exec, I needed to basically lead different. And so it was for their benefit, but it was also for my benefit.
So I think the next project is to write a workbook that we could all start filling out. It's like, how do I keep my identity in this scenario while still meeting
Oh, I could
Bob and
write
his
that book
must?
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, too many stories actually.
And then one of the biggest things that jumped out to me in everything you're doing is mentorship. You believe in always having somebody to mentor. To I take from it that you're gaining as much as you're giving as you're mentoring somebody.
That's so true. And I actually do a lot of pro bono mentoring, where I don't charge. And I have at least one of those every week. And so it's very, very helpful to me as well as hopefully to the individual because they keep coming back and wanting. And so that tells me that maybe what I'm sharing with them is valuable. But it also, absolutely to your point, I learn every time. It's been amazing to do that because I actually do mentor some unbelievably successful people. And I learn from them just as well because they want to be mentored around a certain thing. And so it's enjoyable for me to do. But you better believe it. I have one client, he's a doctor, and he is amazing. He's brilliant. I feel like I now have my medical degree since I've been coaching. But I work with him on public speaking because he's being asked to speak literally around.
Ah,
And so
yeah.
that's fabulous opportunity for me too, because I've learned so much. So yes, I would say from clients, actually paying clients and also mentoring, it goes both ways and it should.
Have you had a personal moment of somebody wanting you to mentor them and you're looking at them going, what are you talking about? You're super successful. I want you to teach me how you do those things. And they're like, no, 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 you're super successful. Have you had those moments where you're blown away that somebody wants you to be their mentor?
Yes, and this guy's a perfect example of
Okay.
that. So he was a gynecologist by medical degree. He's in my book, by the way. His name is Nathan Goodyear, and he practiced for years, like 16 years or something. And then he decided, you know what? I really need to move into integrative medicine because there's so much more out there that I could be offering my patients. So he started an integrative medical practice, primarily for cancer patients.
Mm.
So when he comes to me and says, Deb, you know, I want you to help me with all of the talks that I have to do that I'm being asked to do. And I need your help in public speaking and making sure that my presentations are sharp, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm thinking exactly what you said. Are you kidding me? And also, I don't know squat about, the technical terms of medicine or anything like that. But what you realize in every case, you have the natural skills to lead others and the natural skills in his case of what the audience wants to hear and how they want to hear it, so that ultimately they take action based on what your goals are, then I can help you. So it's been a very humbling experience in that sense because he's really a very brilliant guy, but it's been because I think I got my degree now. He wouldn't think
I,
that, but I do.
no, I absolutely get you. Your book is called Bold Mission: Courageously Pursue Your Calling, which is a great title. It's book two is How to Get the Courage to Then Become Bold. That's
That's a
some
good
steps for
idea.
us.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been amazing to get just a tip of the iceberg of your story and how much you do and give back. Is there one last thing that you would love to say to people just to encourage them to take those next steps?
Yes, never give up. Don't give up.
Oh man, what a powerful conversation with Debra Boblitt. Here are the few things I took away from this today. As you heard, I got some therapy. I got some therapy through this conversation, man. It hit just at the right time as I was coming out of dealing with stuff. Our walks were similar. So here's some of the things that I took from talking with Debra and how amazing she is. Your calling doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It starts with one brave decision right where you are. Oh, right? Just hit so hard there. Something else I got out of this: fear is often a sign you're heading in the right direction. If it stretches you, it's probably worth doing. I can't say probably, probably. So yeah, it is absolutely worth doing if it stretches you. And we have to fight that inherent human thing that says, let me just stop today. Let me just do what's easy. Let me just give up. That's the fear talking. We never give in to fear. Clarity comes through action. Oh my God, I got so much out of that. You don't have to see the entire path before you take that first step. I have not seen hardly any of my paths, and I can tell you the steps that I've taken usually give me that clarity, right? You have to go up the mountain to get a better picture of where you're coming from and then also where you're going. Your story matters. That's why I do this show, Finding the Stories. Your story matters. Sharing it can inspire and unlock courage in someone else's journey. Debra's Bold Mission isn't just a book title. It's an invitation. If you're ready to lean into your own bold mission, start now. Start small, but start. You have to. All right, before I go on too much further, I would do a whole nother show on Debra here and what I learned from Debra, but that's not what this show is about. This has been Finding the Stories. I'm Charles McFall, reminding you that your story is still being written. Make it one worth telling. I'll see you on the next time around. Thanks for listening.